Sweet. All right, let's get a browser input then. This website is called inverse.com, and we are going to pull up some link here for our moderators to share with you guys if you'd like to read along with us or read ahead, read behind. Boom. There we go. Yes, it would definitely be more chill for us to study or find the topic, the research material ahead of time. All right, I'm going to shrink this down a little bit, though. And
Wayward Stars, welcome back for 6 months. K Birdie is back for 22 months. Yo!
welcome back. Welcome back.
One Cosmo Pig, I like your username, and thank you for being here for 4 months. And Yeet Karma, welcome back. I love all your usernames. It's so much fun. Like Wablu the Swablu, who's back for 27 months.
Hey. Can we get some mod love?
Let's get some mod
Just a
love.
little bit of mod love for those mods, those lieutenants. We appreciate you guys helping us on Twitch and on good old Discord. So here we are. Today's subject is Tsushima, Japan, IRL. So this article is 3 things Ghost of Tsushima gets wrong about Japanese history.
Okay.
So we're going to find some differences here.
Let's do it.
Aha. Ghost of Tsushima takes us to the Japanese island of Tsushima, Japan, during the 13th century, right as the Mongols are invading the island as part of their latest conquest. After a devastating first assault, Samurai Jin Sakai is one of the last remaining warriors left to defend his home and repel the Mongol forces. But just how historically accurate is Sony's latest cinematic action-adventure game? For those of you who don't know, the Game Plus of Ghost of Tsushima Legends comes out this Friday, and we're going to be streaming with Jin Sakai's actor, Daisuke Tsuji, and Norio's actor, Earl T. Kim, in a online co-op companion playthrough next Sunday.
Yes.
I'm very excited. And both of those guys are streaming on Twitch, and really awesome gentlemen. Ghost and exclamation points in the chat. The mods will help you with the link to their channels. Ghost of Tsushima's inciting event, where a small force of local samurai defending against thousands of invading Mongols, is more or less accurate. The Mongolian army did invade Tsushima in 1273, as the game depicts. 1274, my apologies. 1274, as the game depicts. And they were met by a small group of samurai that were quickly overwhelmed. Ghost of Tsushima starts at the basic same premise, but very quickly takes a few liberties by adding some fiction to the mix, especially in the way of introducing a number of fictional characters. Developer Sucker Punch was devoted to historical accuracy to an extent. The studio invited 2 modern-day samurai into their office. Ooh, is this a hyperlink? That's a hyperlink. Let's see what that does. Oh, here we go. Here's some modern-day samurai.
So cool.
In the Performance Capture Studio. Very cool. Aha. Sucker Punch co-founder Chris Zimmerman said in a 2018 interview with GameSpot that Ghost of Tsushima takes historical liberties to make a fun game. We're going to deviate from historical truth. We just want to do it intentionally, Zimmerman said, adding that cultural constraints helped the team accurately represent cultural consultants helped the team accurately represent Japanese culture from that time period, accurately representing wildlife and statues, along with linguistic nuances. The challenge for us, making a game in an original story, but taking place in a real historical time, is making sure we're telling the story that people can relate to. Here are the 3 biggest differences between the historical facts and the story presented in Ghost of Tsushima. Would you like to read one?
Sure, yeah. Ghost of Tsushima characters never existed in history. Jin Sakai and his uncle, Lord Shimura, weren't present in the initial battles for Tsushima, nor was anyone with similar naming. Both characters are entirely fictional. The Sakai clan has existed in real life for generations, but it wasn't established until the 14th century, and the Sakai clan has never been led by a man named Jin. There's also no such thing as the Shimura clan. Shimura clan in Japan, though Shimura is a fairly common surname. Jin and Lord Shimura's adversary, Genghis Khan's grandson Khotan Khan, isn't real either, though Genghis Khan did have many grandsons. In actuality, it was Kublai Khan who led the Mongol Empire during the first Mongol invasion of Japan. Ooh, okay. So, the real-world Tsushima samurai were led by the island's actual leaders, the So Daimyo family. Their leader at the time was Sukekuni So, who led a force of around 80 samurai, and he died during the initial Mongolian invasion. These key differences help establish Ghost of Tsushima as a deviation from historical fact early on. It also openly removes any expiration date for the characters, whereas whenever Assassin's Creed incorporated historical characters, it had to grapple with the real-world death dates for them. With fictional characters, unless they die within the game, Ghost of Tsushima characters can always be incorporated into a sequel.
Aha. So I'm curious if anybody has a historically based favorite video game that they like to play. What video games are you guys playing that are more or less based on real events?
Historical fiction.
Historical fiction. Scamanders, welcome and thank you for the cheers. Lady Indigo, thank you for the cheers as well with Nocturnal Druid. And Raving Vixie, welcome back for 5 months. Gina, good to see you for 14 months. Whoa. And Dilger, thank you for the gift sub. Appreciate you very much. What's up, Rad Rillis? Back for 11 months. Hey, we got a lot of Assassin's Creed fans around here.
Well, it seems that Assassin's Creed really sets their stories in history, which is really cool.
Oregon Trail, yeah, which we may play on Friday. We're doing a Super Retro Funk Hype Friday stream where we're going to play some emulator PC games and some PlayStation 2 games. What's your general hype level for Assassin's Creed Valhalla? I'm curious. Right on. So let's learn about the second thing that's different besides the specific samurai. So nice to know that there were, of course... No single person stopped the Mongolian invasion of Japan. That's not true. I did. In Ghost of Tsushima, Jin stands up to the Mongolians and will presumably discover a way to repel them by the end of the game. No human analog to Jin exists in real life. The real Mongolian army was thwarted in Kyushu, Japan, by a hurricane in 1274, well after they conquered Tsushima. A different hurricane allegedly thwarted their second invasion attempt 5 years later, in 81. Jin is the personification of that hurricane, which was later dubbed Kamikaze, meaning divine wind. At the time, this miracle was chalked up to the thunder god, Raijin, giving the Japanese people a helping hand. The kamikaze has since been written off by most as a myth. They did not proofread this article.
No, they didn't.
But some modern scientists believe it actually occurred.
I believe there would be a hurricane. I mean, there are a lot of hurricanes.
And islands are especially vulnerable to hurricanes.
Yeah.
7 years. Yes, you're better at math than me. Director Nate Fox commented on the change from a hurricane to human last year. Our hero isn't a hurricane, he's a man. And we actually acknowledge that change with his sword that's engraved with Stormwind designs. And we have some moves in the moon stance where we can spin like a tornado. All right, Amelia, you want to take 13th Century Samurai?
Sure. They don't use swords or armor. While samurai are almost always depicted wielding a sword in popular culture with the way of the sword, being a widely known ideal associated with the samurai, they didn't prefer swords until the 13th century. Many samurai were taught to fight with bow and arrow while on horseback before any kind of blade. The swanky shogun armor you imagine when somebody says samurai wasn't used at that point either. Mongolians also commonly preferred a bow and an arrow for combat, so Ghost of Tsushima takes a lot of liberties in terms of the weapons.
Interesting. I really prefer the bow and arrow, so...
So you're like the OG.
I'm just saying, I might be a real samurai.
So there they are.
With
depiction
none of the
real Mongol invasions, with the Mongols on the left and the samurai on the right.
Oh, there they are, getting chased down on horseback.
Low Skies, welcome back for 11 months. And Mixo Mistius, thank you for being here for 2 months. All right.
Sucker Punch co-founder Chris Zimmerman noted in the 2018 GameSpot interview that the game leans into fun samurai tropes to entertain at the expense of historical accuracy. If you have an idea about what samurai look like, or how they act, or how they think we're going to give that to you, Zimmerman said, most people's idea is really based on the idea of samurai, which is really more of a 16th, 17th, and 18th century idea of the samurai. 13th century samurai, historically, is pretty different. These stylistic liberties extended into gameplay as well. There are things that Jin does when you're fighting that no samurai would ever do, Zimmerman said. He does spin strikes, which are fun, they're very showy. They are completely, you would have never guessed that in real life.
I have no
This sentence doesn't make any sense. They didn't actually spin around like that. Many of Jin's more sneaky moves, as the Ghost, riff on traditional concepts associated with ninjas, which didn't emerge in Japan until the 15th century. So many of the samurai and ninja imagery is adopted from much later in history. In summary, the basic plot hooks and overall story are reminiscent of history, and many of these cultural references reflect the time period. However, Ghost of Tsushima takes many liberties to present us with a fun video game experience. Only you can decide if Ghost of Tsushima strikes the balance between accuracy and fun properly. All right.
Okay.
Interesting.
Huey, welcome back for 5 months. And Scammered, Scamanders, thanks for cheering.
So here's another article in Ghost of Tsushima, which is, from the Washington Post, if you like Ghost of Tsushima, here's what you may not know about samurai. So we're going to share this article with you guys in the chat as well. Thank you again, moderators, for that help. And we'll toggle this over to here. I don't know why every website's so different. There we go. Go away. The 13th century Japan depicted in Ghost of Tsushima never existed. Although you'd be excused for thinking it, at least reflects a real place. All the motifs of the samurai action genre are present, after all. Lush green fields and bamboo groves sit improbably next to snowy mountain ranges and forests of blood-red autumn trees. A scowling lord in ornate armor talks endlessly of duty and honor to his younger warrior charge, the protagonist Jin Sakai. Even though the rough outline of the time period seems to match with a vague awareness that yes, the Mongol Empire under Kublai Khan did attempt to invade Japan around that time. Dig deeper though, and not much else holds up. Though the game is set in 1274, during the first Mongol invasion, its 40-plus hours of story span a period that suggests a long-term insurgent combat against an occupying force. In reality, the Mongols' first attempt was a set of brief battles followed by a more protracted second invasion in 1281, 7 years later, that consisted of only a few months of combat. Neither led to the kind of military occupation Tsushima portrays. Alongside this is a character of Jin himself, a dour samurai who wields a katana and agonizes over his allegiance to a warrior code centuries before a figure like him could have ever existed. Well, so what? Most players will understandably shrug at these historical distortions. The game isn't meant to provide a history lesson. It's a fantasy version of 13th century Japan meant to provide a fun experience rather than an education. But for those wondering how samurai really lived, it's worth surfacing some of the historical details misrepresented in the game, particularly in regard to the way some scholars and critics find it uncomfortable to celebrate a samurai as uncritically, as Tsushima does.
Wow.
So here's our guy. The imagined samurai.
Whether it means to or not, anyone coming to a piece of historical fiction like Tsushima without knowing the difference between what's fact and fantasy may leave with some impression that it depicts real historical events. It doesn't help that the game is more clearly inspired by samurai film than any historical record, which means its view of the past is already filtered through a layer of semi-mythological interpretation. History is, after all, a process of telling and retelling the stories of how the world came to look the way it does now. And, in the case of Japan, a country whose recent past has seen the history of the samurai and the Mongol invasions warped to serve horrific purposes, it's particularly clear how fraught even the most fantastic depiction of Tsushima time period can be.
So, Amelia, one of your favorite genres is historical fiction.
Yes, I do.
What is it you like about historical fiction so much?
I really love history. That was always one of my favorite subjects in school because they're stories. They're real stories. So I love anything that has to do with history. And what I like about historical fiction is that you can take made-up characters and place them within this world, which gives you more liberty, especially when they get to meet real-life historical figures. So I find it really fun. I really like it.
Well, Tsushima's most important cultural touchstone is, as its American creators at Sucker Punch have made clear, samurai cinema, especially director and writer Akira Kurosawa, 1950s and 1960s samurai films. The game has ambitions of transporting players back to feudal Japan, co-creator-director Jason Connell told Entertainment Weekly, and Kurosawa's Seven Samurai and Sanjuro served as reference guides to the team. The similarities between Kurosawa's films and Ghost of Tsushima are skin-deep at best, though, and in the films cited, which take place centuries apart, Kurosawa used a romanticized version of the samurai to reflect critically on how blind loyalty, the desire for heroism, and class divisions deeply affected his characters. In an article on Ghost of Tsushima for Polygon, critic Kazuma Hashimoto notes how the game's cinematic references enter into an area of identity and cultural understanding its creators never grapple with. Hashimoto describes how Kurosawa's work, far from celebrating the samurai, showed that they were a group of people capable of the same failings as the lower class, and were not bound to arbitrary notions of honor and chivalry.
It's so important to note that both of these films, along with plenty of other samurai genre classics, were made soon after Japan's defeat in the Second World War. They were created in reaction to a political system that used a romantic view of supposedly traditional Japanese culture as part of a fascist empire-building project. Kurosawa, like many of his peers, approached the myth of endlessly loyal, selfless warrior as one inseparable from the creation of a brutal totalitarian militant government and imperialist expansion. His samurai characters weren't historically accurate, but their semi-mythological status was used as a historical archetype that could be reclaimed for purposes other than militarism.
Ha-ha!
I did it! I said a word.
Early morning reading is trickier than you might guess. It is This is the earliest stream Amelia and I do, and you guys are tuning in from around the world, which means maybe it's even late at night for you. Where's everybody tuning in from right now? American Idiot, thank you very much for being here for 2 months. You must be in America or elsewhere and realizing that we're full of American idiots over here.
We got Hong Kong, Argentina, Nebraska, Michigan, Scotland, Finland, Germany, Florida, the Netherlands, Toronto, Utah, Turkey, Czech
Russia,
Republic,
Ukraine,
Belgium, California, Brazil.
Hey, Lucca, welcome back. You're here from Prague, Czech Republic. Hello, hello. Good to have you here, Lucka. And we've got Persephone18 is here with a gift sub. To Zitonia, JWise19, thank you for the gift sub to Fire in Your Eyes. And Heather Hitchman, welcome back for a whole year.
Woohoo!
Yo. And Alyssa, thank you very much for 20 months.
Yo, 20 months. It's amazing.
That critique and thematic exploration is not really present in Tsushima. Jin and his uncle, both romantic versions of samurai, a class that did not yet exist in the time period invoked by the game, don't question the severity of violence they engage in, or feel uneasy about their elevated place in a hierarchical society. Instead, Jin's biggest worry is whether it's dishonorable not to fight his enemies head on, and whether he's betraying a fabricated warrior's code. In essence, Tsushima is copying what Kurosawa films look like without understanding what they're saying, according to this author.
Yeah. Do you want to read about like the actual Tsushima and not so much about the game itself?
Sure.
Because this is just very much tied to the game.
Yeah, let's look it up. This is why we want to look up subjects a little ahead of time so we can screen the articles. Let's look at the Mongol invasion of Tsushima, because I think that's really what we're up to. Many of the recent articles, of course, are regarding... All right, so this is from The Ancient, which is an encyclopedia website that we have used once or twice before. Let me just toggle on ads. And we'll share this with the mod team. This is from ancient.eu.
Ancient History Encyclopedia.
Indeed, huzzah. The Mongol invasions of Japan in 1274 and 1281. So the dates are agreeing with the other articles, which means we're in the right place. The Mongol invasions of Japan took place in 1274 and 1281 CE when Kublai Khan sent 2 huge fleets from Korea and China. So Kublai Khan's dates are until 94, which means he outlived this invasion by 13 years. In both cases, the Japanese, and especially the samurai warriors, vigorously defended their shores, but it would be a typhoon storm and the so-called kamikaze, or divine winds, which sank and drowned countless ships and men, thus saving Japan from foreign conquest. The whole glorious episode, which mixed divine intervention with martial heroism, would gain and hold mythical status in Japanese culture forever after. Here are Japanese samurai attacking Mongol ships. We definitely had that experience in Ghost of Tsushima. A diplomatic opening.
The Mongols had already sucked half of China and Korea into their huge empire, and their leader, Kublai Khan, now set his sight on Japan. Kublai was the grandson of Genghis Khan and had founded the Yuan dynasty of China from 1271 to 1368 CE, with his capital at Dadu, Beijing. But just why he now wanted to include Japan into his empire is unclear. Well, must have more. He may have sought to conquer Japan for its resources. The country did have a long-standing reputation in East Asia as the land of gold, a fact recounted in the West by the Venetian traveler Marco Polo. Kublai Khan may have wished to enhance his prestige or eliminate the trade between that country and his great enemy in southern China, the Southern Song Dynasty. The conquest of Japan would also have brought new and well-equipped army into the Khan's hands, which he could have used to good effect against the troublesome Song. The invasions may have even been some sort of revenge for the havoc that the Wacko, the Japanese pirates, had been causing in the East Asian coastlines and trade ships. Whatever his reasons, the approach was clear. Diplomacy first, warfare second.
Ooh. Now, we did learn a little bit about some Japanese pirates as well. We heard about in the island of Tsushima.
Yeah.
The Great Khan sent a letter to Japan in 1268 CE recognizing its leader as the King of Japan and expressing a desire to foster friendly relations, but also demanding tribute to be paid to the Mongol court, with the ominously veiled threat that the use of arms was, the Khan hoped, to be avoided. A Chinese ambassador, Zhao Lingbi, was also sent to Japan in 1270 CE, and he stayed there for a year to foster some sort of understanding between the two nations. Further letters and ambassadors were sent by the Khan up to 1274 CE, but all were blatantly ignored, as if the Japanese did not quite know how to respond and so decided to sit silently on the diplomatic fence.
There he is.
There's Kublai Khan,
He's very wide.
Tertiary Khan.
Yeah.
The Kamakura shogunate had ruled Japan since 1292 CE, and the recent shogun Hojo Tokimune, 1268 to 84, was confident that he could meet any threat from mainland Asia. Troops were put on alert in the Dazi-fu fortress and military base in the northwest Kyushu, where any invasion seemed most likely to land. But the Khan's diplomatic approach was rebuffed both by Japanese emperor and the shogunate. The lack of subtlety in the Japanese response to the Khan's overtures may have been down to their lack of experience in international relations after a long period of isolation, and only by the bias of their principal contact with mainland Asia, the Southern Song, and the low opinion exiled Chinese Zen Buddhist monks had of their Mongol conquerors.
So they were basically like, we don't want to be your friend, so we're just going to ignore you.
Yeah, they were like, we are literally over here on this island doing our own thing.
Yeah.
You be over there.
So, the first invasion, the Bunai campaign, the Khan amassed a fleet of some 800 to 900 ships and dispatched it from Korea to Japan in early November 1274 CE. The ships carried an army of some 16,600 to 40K men, which consisted of Mongols and conscripted Chinese and Koreans. The first Japanese territory to receive these invaders was Tsushima and the Iki Islands on the 5th and 13th of November respectively, and which were then plundered. The Mongol attacks had met stiff resistance on Tsushima, where the defenders were led by Sukekuni, but were successful largely thanks to superior numbers. The defensive force at Iki, led by Taria Kagetaka,
If we have any native speakers, please let us know how to pronounce these names.
Was equally valiant, but they were eventually obligated to make a last stand within Hinotsume Castle. With no reinforcements that came from the mainland, the castle fell.
Castles.
Yeah.
Castles, man.
castles. Okay,
Taira.
so Tyra.
Tyra?
Tyra.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Druid.
Mm-hmm.
After a brief stop at Takashima Island, the Matsura Peninsula, the invasion fleet proceeded to Hakata Bay, landing on the 19th of November. The large bay's sheltered and shallow waters had suggested to the Japanese this would be the exact spot chosen by the Mongol commanders. Prepared they may have been, but the total Japanese defense force was still small, between 4,000 and 6,000 men. The Mongols won their first engagement thanks to their superior numbers and weapons, the powerful double-horn bow and gunpowder grenades fired by catapults, and their more dynamic battlefield strategies using well-disciplined and skillful cavalry, which responded to orders conveyed by gongs and drums. The Mongols had other effective weapons too, such as armor-piercing crossbows and poisoned arrows. Yep, this sounds familiar. In addition, the Japanese were not used to combat involving mass troop movements, as they favored allowing individual warriors to pick their own single targets. Rather, the Japanese warriors operated in small groups led by a mounted samurai skilled at archery and a number of protective infantry. Well, maybe there was a number of provocative infantry. They were just out there doing the most. And then there were the protective infantry armed with a naginata, which is what Norio uses, a long curved blade pole arm. Another disadvantage was that the Japanese tended to use shields only as protective walls for archers, while the Mongols and Korean infantry typically carried a shield of their own as they moved around the battlefield, which is something we see. All of our allies in Ghost of Tsushima, I don't think any of them carry a shield. Only do we see the Mongols with shields. The samurai did have certain advantages over the enemy, as they wore iron plate and leather armor. Only the Mongol heavy cavalry wore armor, and their long, sharp swords were used much more effectively than the Mongol short sword. So here we are, samurai on horseback.
Wow. All right. Curiously, 18 days after first landing on Japanese soil, and despite creating a bridgehead at Hakata Bay, the invaders did not push on deeper into Japanese territory. Perhaps this was because of supply problems or the death of the Mongol general Liu Fuxiang, killed by a samurai's arrow. It may also be true that the whole invasion was actually a reconnaissance mission for the second larger invasion yet to come, and no conquest was ever intended in 1274 CE. Whatever their motive, the invaders remained by their ships for the night, withdrawing out of the bay for safety on the 20th of November. This was a fateful decision because, in some accounts, a terrible storm then struck and killed up to a third of the Mongol army and severely damaged the fleet. The attackers were thus obligated to withdraw back to Korea.
Yo, and right on, Chris Derps is telling us that it is Fu Ziang, I guess, the Mongol general, Liu Fuxiang.
Fuxiang.
Diplomatic interval. Kublai Khan then returned to diplomacy and sent another embassy to Japan in 1275 CE, demanding once again tribute be paid. This time, the shogunate was even more dismissive in its reply and beheaded the Mongol ambassador on the beach near Kamakura. The Khan was undeterred and sent a second embassy, probably with a thicker, stronger neck, in 1279. The messengers met the same fate. Beheaded. And the Khan realized only force would bring Japan into the Mongol Empire. However, Kublai Khan was occupied with campaigns in southern China against the Song, and it would be 2 more years before he turned his attention once again to Japan.
Meanwhile, the Japanese had been expecting an imminent invasion ever since 1274, and this period of high suspense made a great dent in the government's treasury. Apart from keeping the army on standby, fortifications were built and massive stone walls erected around Hakata Bay in 1275, which measured some 19 kilometers or 12 miles in length, and were up to 2.8 meters or 9 feet high in places. Intended to permit archers on horses, the inner sides of the Hakata walls were sloped, while the outer facing was sheer. If a second invasion was to come, Japan was now much more prepared for it.
Nice. Yeah, one thing I've been thinking about when I was playing Ghost of Tsushima is that a lot of those forts in the game are built up right next to some convenient rock cliffs to hop up in.
Yeah.
You know, if I was going to build a fort, I would probably...
Build it away from rock cliffs.
Yeah, I wouldn't want them people sneaking in like this. The second invasion, the Khan campaign. Kublai Khan's second invasion fleet was a whole lot bigger than the first one. This time, thanks to his recent defeat of the Song and acquisition of their navy, there were 4,400 ships. What? That's a ton of ships. Can you guys imagine? Even like in today, hundreds of years later, 4,400 ships. I've never seen that many ships in one place. And around 100,000 men. Again, a mix of Mongol, Chinese, and Korean warriors.
Whoa.
Once again, the invaders hit Tsushima on the 9th of June and Iki on the 14th of June before attacking Hakata Bay and Kyushu on the 23rd. This is in 81. This time, though, the force split and one fleet attacked Honshu, where it was rebuffed by the Nagato. Meanwhile, at Hakata, the Japanese put their defenses to good use and presented a stiff resistance. The fortification walls did their job, and this time the attackers could not establish themselves permanently on the beach, resulting in much shipboard fighting. Eventually, after heavy losses, the Mongols withdrew first to Shiga and Noki Islands and then to the Iki Island. There, they were harassed by Japanese ships making constant raids into Mongol fleets using small boats and much courage. Many of the later stories of samurai heroics came from this episode of the invasion. So actually the second invasion, not the first one. And still we see small forces, small boats going up against mighty odds.
Yes, the Khan then dispatched reinforcements from southern China, perhaps another 40,000 men. Some sources go as high as 100,000. And the two armies gathered to make a combined push deeper into Japanese territory, this time selecting Hirado as a target in early August. The combined fleets then moved east and attacked Takashima, the battle there taking place on the 12th of August. Fierce fighting raged for several weeks, and the invaders likely faced shortages of supplies. Then, yet again, the weather intervened and caused havoc. On the 14th of August, a typhoon destroyed much of the Mongol fleet, wrecking ships that had been tied together for safety against Japanese raids and smashing the ships. Smashing the uncontrollable vessels against the coastline. From half to 2/3 of the Mongol force was killed.
Whoa.
Thousands more of the Khan's men were washed up or left stranded on the beaches of Imari Bay and were
Summarily.
They were executed, although some Song Chinese, former allies of Japan, were spared. Those ships that survived sailed back to China.
Nice. Get on out of here. We don't need this Khan around town.
No.
Black Cat Plays, thank you for the cheers. Is that true? The Mongols were defeated on your birthday.
Ah.
Well, happy birthday, Jade.
Yeah. And Irish Deviant, thank you so much for cheering.
And Pesta, thank you for being here for 7 months. Another month of chill dance party amazingness.
Yeah, they were outgunned, outmanned, outnumbered, outplanned. They had to make an all-out stand. Ayo, they gonna need their right hand, man. Check it.
You want to do the whole thing?
Oh, I mean, I could.
All right, we're almost to the end of this article, and then Amelia's going to give you a probably glorious rendition of Right Hand Man from Hamilton.
I've been working on it. I memorized a little
She'll
bit
do the
more.
entire thing, April. She knows the whole thing.
A good amount of it.
We'll do it as we raid, all right?
Okay, yeah.
The storm winds that either sunk or blew the Mongol ships safely away from the Japanese shores were given the name kamikaze, as we've learned, divine winds, and they were sent as a response to the Japanese appeal at Hachiman, the Shinto god of war, to help to protect the country against a vastly numerically superior army. The name kamikaze would be resurrected for Japanese suicide pilots of the Second World War. If you guys all remember Pearl Harbor, a day that would live in infamy. As they too were seen as a last resort to once again save Japan from invasion. It seems too that the Mongol ships were not particularly well built, and so proved much less seaworthy than they should have been. Modern marine archaeology has revealed that many of the ships had especially weak mast steps, which is something absolutely not to have in the case of a storm. The poor workmanship may have been due to Kublai Khan's rushing to get the invasion fleet together, as many of the ships in the fleet were a variety without a keel and highly unsuitable for sea voyagers. So maybe he would have been better off with like 10 really good ships.
He wanted to make an impression.
Yeah, that's right. He went with the 4,400 ships, but they kind of, blub, 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 blub. Too soon? Nah, it's been years. Thank you. Further, Chinese ships of the period were actually renowned for their seaworthiness, so it seemed that the demand for a huge fleet in a short space of time resulted in a risk that did not pay off. Nevertheless, the crucial factor in the fleet's demise was the Japanese attacks, which had forced the Mongol commanders to have their large and unwieldy ships lashed together using chains. It was a defensive measure that proved fatal come the typhoon. So they were chained together to sink.
Yeah. Oy. The aftermath. The Mongols would also fail in their attempts to conquer Vietnam and Java. But after 1281 CE, they did then establish a lasting peace over most of Asia, the Pax Mongoliaca, which would endure until the rise of the Ming Dynasty in 1368 through 1644. Kublai Khan never gave up on the diplomatic route either, and continued to send unsuccessful missions to persuade Japan to come join the Chinese tribute system. Please come.
They were like, no, we got all this gold. This gold is our gold. We don't want to give you that gold.
The Japanese, meanwhile, may have seen off the two invasions they called Moko Shurai, but they fully expected a third to come at any time, and so they kept an army in constant readiness for the next 30 years. Fortunately for them, the Mongols had other challenges to face along the borders of their massive empire, and there would be no third time, luckily, in an attempt to conquer Japan. The great significance of the invasions to the Japanese people are here summarized by the historian M. Ashkenazi.
For the Japanese of the 13th century, the threatened Mongol invasion was, historically and politically, a major watershed. It was the first time the entire military might of Japan had to be mobilized for defense of the nation. Until then, even foreign wars were little more than squabbles that involved one or another faction within Japan. Essentially, domestic affairs. With the Mongol invasion, Japan became exposed to international politics at a personal and national level as never before.
Whoa.
So lastly, the Buddhist monks and Shinto priests, who had long been promising divine intervention, were proved right when the storms destroyed the Mongol fleet, and this resulted in an upsurge in both religions' popularity. One area of life where the invasions are curiously absent is in Japanese medieval literature. But there is one famous scroll painting depicting the invasion. Commissioned by a samurai warrior who fought during the invasion, Takazaki Shuenaga, it is known as the Mongol Scroll and was produced in 1293 CE to promote Takazaki's own role in battle. Do we have a picture of that? No. Unfortunately for the Japanese government, though, the practical costs of the invasions would have serious consequences. An army had to be kept in constant readiness. Hakitara was kept on alert with a standing army until 1312 CE, and payment to soldiers became a serious problem, leading to widespread discontent. This was a war of defense, not conquest, and there were no spoils of war, like booty and land, to reward the fighters. The agricultural sector was also severely disrupted by the defense preparations. Rivals to the Hojo clan were ruled by the Kamakura shogunate, began to prepare their challenge to the political status quo. Emperor Daigo from 1318 to 39, not long-lived, or long-reigned, eager for the emperors to regain some of their long-lost political power, stirred up a rebellion which resulted in the eventual fall of the Kamakura shogunate in 1333, and the installation of the Ashikaga shogunate, which, with its first shogun, Ashikaga Takauji. Well, there you have it, guys.
Wow.
Whoa. Okay, so I mean, reading through that, I mean, now I get that the game itself, you know, we use some romanticized ideas of samurai and samurai later in their history, but it sounds like, you know, the actual, the invasion, the Mongol invasion itself sounds very familiar. So it looks like we have a nice hybrid.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, why they call it historical fiction.
Exactly.
Cool stuff. Hey, Rax Rizzo, thank you very much for the subscribe. Welcome to the crew.
Thanks, Jax.
We appreciate having you guys here. And we've got 3 awesome options for a raid, and before that, we're going to poll what we'll study on next week's stream.
Yes. So, we have decided that we're going to make a slight little change to our Curiosity Chill. Instead of polling the topic the day of and then having to kind of, you know, frantically find a good article, we've decided to pick a topic for next week and have a week to be able to find the best articles.
Yeah, we'll get you guys some awesome stuff.
Yeah. So
Avari Roman, welcome back for 14 months. What do you guys think we should study next week?
yeah, what should be the topic for next week?
Yeah, we're always evolving here. That sounds good to you guys? I'm glad it does. And Roman, it's true. I'm really glad to see you, friend. Thank you for being here. And Lady Gao Gao, thank you for being here for 2 months.
Ooh, female pirates.
Okay, female pirates. That sounds awesome. We have put feng shui on here like a million times.
Yeah.
Feng shui.
Light therapy.
Light therapy. There we go.
Languages is kind of a very broad topic.
We actually did do one on languages. We did do one on different kind of categories of languages, and
history of Halloween, since we're coming up to that.
History of Halloween. Cool. Let's get one more idea. Brum, ba, bum, 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 bum.
Seeing anything that excites you, Bri?
See a lot of people in agreement with each other.
Yeah.
Birds of prey?
Yeah, let's do it.
Birds of prey. All right, my friends, you are determining the future right now.
Yeah, so what are we going to study next week for Curiosity Chill? Shall we study 1, female pirates, number 2, feng shui, Number 3, light therapy. Number 4, the history of Halloween. Or number 5, birds of prey. Thank you for voting. Irish Deviant, thank you for cheering. Lady Goo Goo, thank you for being here for 2 months. Appreciate you. The birds! Okay, all right. Well, it seems like the history of Halloween and female pirates are going pretty high up there.
You know what? This could be an interesting way to do it. Where we take the top 2.
Yeah.
That you and I could find. We could find articles on female pirates, and we could find articles on the history of Halloween. Mm-hmm. And then at the start of the next stream, we decide between
which one
those
goes
two,
first?
and then we can always hang on to the other one, the other article.
Yeah.
For us, because that way the people who are there on the next Tuesday stream get a say. Maybe that's the way to do it.
We could do both, and we decide which one we're studying first.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that sounds fair. Well, so maybe that'll be our system. We'll do a poll at the end of each stream to come up with our 2 big ones that we're deciding between. Because just so you guys know, one thing that Amelia and I want to improve on this is, if we read the article ahead of time, you guys would be able to understand us a little bit better. We could practice to look up some of how to pronounce some names or words.
Yeah.
And
So
that's
we're not like key to pause.
Yeah, no. Well, sometimes we do that with words where we're like morning. The word is morning. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so that's it, guys. For next Tuesday, we'll be studying female pirates and the history of Halloween.
Oh, that's cool.
And we'll poll which ones to start with. Thank you guys for your sweet niceness. Yeah, Amelia and I are maybe a little hard on ourselves, but we get nervous because we know we're broadcasting, especially when it comes to like ancient Greek names.
Also, fun fact: when I was growing up in school, reading out loud was the most terrifying thing. So the fact that I read out loud to you without having read what I'm reading first just shows how much I love you. And I trust you.
Yeah, we do trust you, and we do love you guys. We really do appreciate you being here. It's so good to have your company. We got a couple of options of where we're going to raid, and while we prepare to raid, I think Amelia is going to drop some wisdom on you, all right?
All right. So I've been working on this.
Okay, well, hold that thought. Let me get the poll up and running of where we're going to raid, and our 3 options are... speaking of Ghost of Tsushima, we're going to be playing Ghost of Tsushima tonight.
Yes.
If you're still up, 7 p.m., which is 8 hours later than whatever time it is for you right now. So it's okay if you got to get to bed, but we will be playing some Ghost of Tsushima tonight on stream. Mm-hmm. And we have our Halloween party.
Oh, yes. Okay, so Halloween, we are throwing a party, and we're going to be playing Resident Evil 2, which has been one of your top recommended games of all time, but we've been too scared to play it until now. Neighborhood Dragon, thank you for cheering.
Thank you for the cheers, friends.
Aw, that's a sweet story.
All right, here's our options of where we can raid. Number 1 in the chat for Tsushima, Ghost of Tsushima. Number 2 for Fall Guys. Number 3 for Animal Crossing New Horizons. And Amelia, are you ready to crush this? Let's do it.
So where shall we raid? Okay. So
point to me when it's time for the first one, okay?
Okay.
I'm gonna turn this music out.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
It's just not quite right.
It's not the vibe.
Thank you for the nice music, though. All right.
Okay. This is from Hamilton. I am working on the song. It is called Right Hand Man.
Remember to breathe.
Yeah. Okay. We are outgunned, outmanned, outnumbered, outplanned. We gotta make an all-out stand. And yo, I'm gonna need a right-hand man. Check it. Can I be real a second? For just a millisecond, let down my guard and tell the people how I feel a second. Now I'm the model of a modern major general, a venerated Virginian veteran whose men are all lining up to put me up on a pedestal, writing letters to relatives, embellishing my elegance and eloquence. But the elephant is in the room. The truth is in your face when you hear the British cannons go boom. Every hope of success is fleeting. How can I keep leading when the people I'm leading keep retreating? We put a stop to the bleeding as the British take Brooklyn, Knights take Rook. But look, we are outgunned, outmanned, outnumbered, outplanned. We gotta make an all-out stand. And yo, I'm gonna need a right-hand man. Incoming! We're battering down the battery, check the damages. We gotta stop 'em and rob 'em of their advantages. Let's take a stand with the stamina God granted us. Hamilton won't abandon ship. Yo, let's steal their cannons.
Kaboom!
Goes the cannons, watch the blood and the shit spray.
Kaboom!
Goes the cannons, we're abandoning Kips Bay.
Boom!
Goes, there's another shipping.
Boom!
Just lost the southern tipping.
Boom!
Gotta get to Harlem quick, we can't afford another slip. Guns and horses, giddy up. I decide to divvy up my forces. We're skittish as the British cut the city up. This close to giving up, facing mass scrutiny. I scream in the face of this mass mutiny. Are these the men with which I am to defend America? We ride at once, and we ride at dawn. Manhattan in the distance. I cannot be everywhere at once, people. I'm in dire need of assistance.
Yes! Brah, brah.
I am Hercules Mulligan.
Nicely done. Just to confirm for everyone, she was doing that from memory. That was coming off the top of the dome. She was not reading that anywhere.
No.
Good work, Amelia.
My goal is to learn the entire thing by heart.
Yeah. I'm her Hercules Mulligan.
Yeah.
Who is, honestly, if you guys haven't checked out Hamilton, it's on Disney Plus, and it's so incredible that you get to watch all these performers from the Broadway performance and be right up there on stage with them. It's such a beautiful, 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 beautiful musical.
Yeah.
Oh, so cool. Thank you guys for all the mission successful.
Thank you.
Good job, Amelia. What a nice way to start our day. Irish Deviant, thank you for the cheers.
Black Cat, thanks for cheering.
And Pumpkin Tiger, welcome back for 27 months. I dare you two to do a legit rap battle. Work it. We might have to.
Yeah.
I need to get my skills up. I need to get my rap skills up. All right, guys, the raid's gonna happen with or without us. So here we go. Spam them with lots of notifications, lots of love. We appreciate you guys. Hit them with the follows on their channel if you like what they're up to. Thanks, mods, lieutenants. See you soon. Raid.